Story 1. Ticketing services charge high service or convenience fees. It is cheaper for me to buy your ticket online because you are not paying someone to physically perform the transaction. Story 2. Employers are posting fake job listings for research purposes with no intention of hiring anyone. They are also listing unrealistic salary ranges, such as $27,000 to $635,000 annually. This practice allows them to circumvent laws in certain states that require a salary range to be included in job postings. Story 3. Your teeth and eyes are not covered under your health insurance plan. This is frustrating. My health insurance covers my health and my body except for my eyes and teeth, which are two very important parts of my body. How is this even acceptable? Who was responsible for this decision? Story 4. The existence of super political action committees in the United States is astonishing. Anyone who wants to can buy an election. Story 5. Changing the terms after the sale is like paying for a subscription with no advertisements and having advertisements added later for the same price unless you pay more. That used to be called extortion. Story 6. Paid dinner talks by retired politicians are widely recognized as a method for them to collect the funds promised for favors and legislation enacted during their time in office. Story 7. Tow truck companies are necessary, but it is unacceptable when they refuse to allow you to come in 20 minutes before closing to claim your car. Charging a $400 daily storage fee to pick it up the next morning, causing you to miss work, is unreasonable. Story 8. Tax season in the United States. Why don't you just tell me the amount I owe you so I don't have to pay a third party to deal with your confusing system and hope it is done correctly so I don't face legal issues? Story 9. Free trial runs that require a debit or credit card result in being automatically signed up for the full package afterward, especially if they make it difficult to cancel before the trial ends. Story 10. Do schools still require students to buy a TI-84 graphing calculator? The drug wars. Story 11. The fact that insurance, which we pay for to support our well-being, can deny our health needs is alarming. How is that not considered a serious moral issue? Story 12. Employers requiring bachelor's degrees for entry-level positions that only need basic literacy and computer skills. Story 13. Politicians profiting from insider trading and contract procurement while giving billionaires the opportunity to harm society. Story 14. Social Security may be depleted before some of us retire, even though we have been paying Social Security taxes throughout our lives. Story 15. Car dealerships. Why are there laws protecting a salesperson's job? Why can't I buy directly from the manufacturer? If you sell cars at a dealership, not secondhand, I disagree with that practice. Story 16. Legalized unlimited campaign finance bribery, bribery of presidents by co-presidents, and bribery of Supreme Court justices. Story 17. Churches should not be exempt from paying taxes. There is no reason for money-generating organizations not to contribute their fair share. This is particularly true for large churches that generate enough revenue to afford luxury items, such as private jets for individuals like Kenneth Copeland. Story 18. Our elected members of Congress, the judiciary, and the executive branch are allowed to trade stocks freely. We need to require their investments to be in blind trusts. Story 19. How taxes are dealt with in the United States can be complicated. You need to do some calculations to determine what should be deducted from your paycheck. It is tax season, and the process can feel overwhelming. If you did not withhold enough from your paychecks, you may owe additional taxes, along with potential penalties for underpayment. In some other countries, the tax statement is straightforward. It clearly indicates whether you owe money or not. Story 20. I wish I was wrong, but recycling is a modern-day scam. A small percentage is actually recycled, nowhere near the claims mentioned. Story 21. The insurance industry. We purchase necessary items, such as housing, that we cannot truly afford, and then we commit to paying a relatively small amount regularly in case something unexpected occurs. It may seem acceptable because insurance companies promise to repair your home if it catches fire. However, the significant profits made by insurance companies suggest that something is fundamentally wrong with this system. Story 22. The current looting of our federal infrastructure is the greatest theft in human history. Story 23. Subscription fees for everything are frustrating. If I buy something, I expect to own it outright, not pay a monthly fee. Story 24. I feel like many people do not understand what a scam is. A scam is not simply something you dislike or that is predatory or unfair. Story 25. Printer ink cartridges cost between $25 and $35 for an item that costs $2 to $4 to produce, resulting in a markup of 600% to 700%. Story 26. We own property, including land and homes. We lease it from the government in the form of taxes. You paid $400,000 to build that house on half an acre of land? That's good for you. Now make sure you pay that $3,000 in taxes each year, or the government will put it up for auction after 6 months. Story 27. Probably modern-day private insurance markets. Insurance as a market concept in a capitalist system makes sense on the surface, but as time moves forward and pressure intensifies to continue improving profits and margins, that concept starts to fall apart. Denying claims and delaying claims for any reason becomes the name of the game as insurance companies shift to being investors of the vast pools of money they are collecting, trying to avoid or delay all payouts as long as possible to profit from the investment of that money. It simply does not work properly anymore for the majority of consumers. Story 28. The entire insurance industry, particularly in healthcare, faces challenges. Society does not simply accept this. Rather, many feel powerless when governments align themselves with lobbyists. Story 29. Credit card interest and compound interest in general refer to how they are applied by financial institutions. Story 30. College textbooks are released in new editions every 2 years by slightly reorganizing the same information, even when the material being taught hasn't changed in thousands of years. This practice ensures that students must pay hundreds of dollars per book, with some classes requiring multiple books, to obtain the latest version instead of buying much cheaper used copies, despite minimal changes such as swapping chapters. Story 31. Capitalism is a significant scam. There has to be a laboring underclass for it to function, and the idea of endless growth is clearly impossible on a finite planet. We can obtain resources from other worlds, but our current economic systems are increasingly problematic when considering how much of the natural world we have compromised to keep beef on our tables. George Monbiot has a compelling piece on this topic. Story 32. Civil forfeiture. Police. You have $10,000 in cash on you? We believe it was involved in a crime. After all, there is no other reason someone would carry that amount of cash. Now we must seize the cash on suspicion of being connected to a crime. We have no evidence, so we are not charging you with a crime. We cannot prove anything, and you would be released immediately. No, we are prosecuting in rem. We are charging the cash with being related to a crime. Cash has no civil rights. Cash receives no due process. It is presumed guilty until you can prove it was not involved in a crime. Maybe you will get it back someday, but that is quite unlikely. Also, eminent domain. Story 33. Council tax, road tax, and taxes in general. I'm not saying we should pay nothing, but what they're doing to us is financial murder. Why do we allow it? There is strength in numbers. Story 34. Pump and dump schemes in cryptocurrency are illegal, just as they are with stocks. However, it appears that some stocks may not face the same restrictions recently. Story 35. Legal? It's interesting that you mention this, as the biggest scam is that the law is entirely based on money rather than facts and actual laws. This applies to both the creation of laws through Congress and the enforcement of laws on the streets. The winner is always the monetary interest. Story 36. Employers hire you for one job and then add an indefinite number of tasks. Employees become legal slaves. Story 37. For-profit universities like DeVry charge desperate individuals high prices for degrees that hold little value. Story 38. Taxes are an important aspect of personal finance. Collecting income tax is one thing, but if you sit down and examine how many things you are taxed on in the United States, you would be surprised by the amount of money you lose to taxes. Story 39. The payment industry is dominated by a duopoly, MasterCard and Visa, with little oversight and no legal recourse for merchants. Visa and MasterCard's fees are not regulated and are significantly higher in the United States than in other countries. Story 40. Financing through car dealerships allows them to offer a higher annual percentage rate than the lender, allowing them to pocket the difference. I learned this recently from a fellow Reddit user. Story 41. The financial system is entirely flawed. Money is created from nothing by a centralized, undemocratic, and independent entity known as central banks. Commercial banks then create additional money through loans by lending most of the deposits made by individuals, again generating money from nothing. Essentially, the current financial system is a combination of two significant scams. Story 42. Yesterday, my friend sent me a video of a pastor who locked the people inside his church until he raised $40,000 from them. Story 43. The entire printer industry operates similarly to the car industry. Imagine buying a car and, when you need gas, not only having to replace the whole tank, but also having to purchase a tank from the car company that contains a special proprietary chip. The car won't run without that chip. This situation is absurd. Yet, this is how most printing companies function today. You cannot simply replace the ink. You must use their cartridges. It seems unreasonable, and they often escape accountability for this practice. Story 44. Greed stores. Items that are sold separately should be sold together. In some stores, you cannot get a complete curtain rod. It is sold separately, including the rod and the ends. Those snack tables are often sold as individual pieces. This practice is not common in other countries. Story 45. I believe glasses are somewhat misleading. People often go to a single location. I use standard frames and purchase them online. You can compare prices for glasses. The dominance in the frame market is quite amusing. Story 46. 6% fees for real estate transactions. I want to pay an agent a flat fee for the transaction or ideally an hourly fee for the time they spend working. Story 47. Health insurance that systematically chooses not to pay 5 to 15% or more of valid claims because they make more money by hiring lawyers to improve their profits in this manner. Story 48. Any kind of insurance where higher risk leads to insurers charging more while covering less, particularly in pet insurance, is concerning. Charging more is acceptable, and covering less can also be understandable. However, doing both simultaneously feels deceptive. It's similar to a restaurant claiming to have a vegetarian version of their cheeseburger, only to remove the burger, the cheese, and one of the buns, offer no replacements, and charge 3 times as much for their so-called special burger. Story 49. Health insurance, like all private insurance, primarily consists of companies whose goal is to collect your money every month. They do everything possible to prevent you from using their services and penalize you when you do. How is that legal? It is absolutely a scam, and it is concerning that we allow it to happen. Insurance, if it should exist at all, should operate like the post office used to before excessive burdens were placed on it to make it unprofitable. Insurance should be non-profit, tax-funded, and led by individuals appointed by the government. While this approach may not be perfect and comes with its own set of problems, at least it would be somewhat accountable to the public. One type of insurance I am more comfortable with is life insurance, because you know you will eventually use it. Story 50. Working 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, is common. Research shows that 4-day workweeks can lead to increased productivity. Story 51. American insurance. For medical insurance, middle-income citizens typically pay a monthly premium or contribute through their paycheck, and then often pay as much, if not more, for medical care than someone who is uninsured. It makes no sense that someone with no insurance could be offered cheaper care than someone with insurance, but it happens frequently. Car insurance isn't much better. My parked car was struck by a drunk driver while it was stationary. I called my insurance company, and they said that my monthly payment would increase by over 10% if I filed a claim. I had to navigate the complicated process of proving to the other vehicle's insurance provider that it was their insured vehicle that hit mine. A friend's house was severely damaged by a tree that fell through his kitchen. Home insurance simply stated "act of God" and refused to cover any damage. Overall, while these companies aren't necessarily scams, they generally do not operate in good faith towards the consumer. Story 52. Lobbying politicians is not the same as bribing them. Politicians are allowed to invest with insider information. Citizens are united. In the United States, Story 53. Any and all convenience, service, or administration fees. The last place I rented had a monthly administration fee of $45, which I found unreasonable. Story 54. Cum-ex and cum-cum transactions occurred in Germany, where company shares are sold back and forth shortly before and after dividend payouts to avoid or reduce residential taxes or double cash tax returns. The financial damage to the German state is estimated at over 50 billion euros, and courts are very hesitant to thoroughly investigate. It is alleged that former Chancellor Scholz was involved when he was mayor of Hamburg. Story 55. Jobs for the boys. This phrase refers to a situation where a politician offers a well-paid and influential position to one of their friends, regardless of whether that person is the best candidate for the role. Story 56. Multi-level marketing and similar pyramid schemes. In theory, they are illegal in the United States, but in reality, they often evade legal consequences through various loopholes. Story 57. Health insurance helps cover expensive medical bills. Insurance companies require medical providers to charge higher prices, which is why you need insurance. Story 58. Lobbying is just bribery. I can't change my mind. The positive aspects of lobbying do not outweigh the corrupt practices, so it all needs to be eliminated. Story 59. Taxes should probably be number one, but I am going with insurance. You are required to have many types of insurance, and you pay for them to keep you covered. One small issue, and they refuse to pay or cover you any longer. It is essentially legal extortion. Story 60. Announcing increases in tolls, utilities, wireless, and other services, but nothing changes. It only gets worse, and a year later, it happens again. Story 61. 1. Religion. 2. Insurance. 3. Paying into Social Security for those of us who will never see a dime of what we contributed. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.